Quebec, a country or a province? Okay, the idea that Quebec wishes to be its own country is nothing new. It's an old and well-documented and spoken about concept. The powers that be in Quebec, I guess we can say that means the French, have long had the burning desire for the province of Quebec to be an independent country of its own. After all, they did hold 2 failed referendums to try to accomplish this goal. Now, this idea probably stretches back much further, but for all intents and purposes, we have come to recognize it as having started with the Quiet Revolution, which in turn then morphed into the René Lévesque years, which then turned into things like the Bloc Québécois, and subsequently into that fateful day in the House of Commons when Prime Minister Stephen Harper stood up and declared that Quebec, though not as separate from Canada, can consider themselves a nation within a nation.
Our position is clear. Do the Québécois form a nation within Canada? The answer is yes.
From now on in, the government of Canada recognizes that the Québécois form a nation inside a nation. So, all you kids in grade 3 that just learned that Canada was 10 provinces and 3 territories, forget all that. We are now 9 provinces, 3 territories, and a nation inside a nation.
This phrase, nation within a nation, though defined by many as simply being a way to describe the French people, or as Harper put it in the clip we just saw, a way to define les Québécois as belonging to a nation, is a very ambiguous phrase indeed. It has never really been clearly defined, and I have a strong feeling that that was on purpose. The way things seem to stand right now leaves it open to interpretation by one group as meaning one thing, and by another group as meaning something completely different. And that is where the problem lies. The fact is, there can only be one nation. Anything else is either a province, a state, a territory, or one of the subsequent offshoots like cities or towns. Of course, as far as the French are concerned, they indeed have run with this concept and do consider themselves to be a separate country, or nation, as they call it, which just happens to be inside the country of Canada. While, on the other hand, the rest of Canada is living under the old concept whereby they are treating Quebec just like they treat the other 9 remaining provinces in the country. So we have a definite problem. Yes, a conundrum of sorts. We have the province of Quebec referring to itself as La Nation du Québec, which, by the way, is also how Prime Minister Stephen Harper is referring to it as these days.
And thank you, Premier, for this wonderful welcome to the capital of the nation, Quebec nation.
Which is going around basically acting like it is indeed its own separate and distinct nation on the world stage. They have their own embassies around the world, which, by the way, the rest of us Canadians end up paying for.
And Canadians are paying for Quebec's satellite offices, or mini embassies, in approximately 26 countries, including the cities of Barcelona, Munich, Mumbai, Vienna, Santiago, and Damascus, to name just a few.
They have their own form of legal system, their own language, total control over their own immigration, which means they control who can immigrate to their nation and who cannot, as well as control over the all-around immigration policy itself as a whole. The Premier, which they and Harper refer to as le Premier Ministre, which translates to the Prime Minister, travels to other countries for summits and meetings within the capacity as other world leaders, as if the Premier were indeed a full-fledged Prime Minister. Now, all of this would be fine if Quebec were indeed a separate nation, because we would be dealing with them as such. But the reality is, they are not. Quebec is still just one of the 10 provinces which resides inside the country of Canada. If they want to go around pretending and acting as if they are indeed a separate country, then it's time that we lay the cards on the table. It's time that we clearly define the circumstances, and as the majority of tax-paying citizens of this country, it's time to make Quebec aware of the financial terms of this little arrangement we have. Because, you know what? If they are a country of their own, then they are not a province inside Canada. And thus, they should not be getting Canadian taxpayers' monies to the tune of 60% of the equalization pot of all the provinces put together.
In 2010 and 2011, Quebec alone will receive almost 60% of the equalization pot for all provinces.
If they are a separate nation, then why on earth should Canadians be sending their money to a separate nation? If they are a separate nation, then a lot of things must change. Secondly, bilingualism. What is the point of trying to make all of Canada bilingual if Quebec is a separate nation? That would be totally unnecessary. Canadians are paying billions each and every year to try and make over 80% of the population learn the language of a mere 6% of the population. This wasteful concept should be done away with outside the province of Quebec, or nation of Quebec, just as it has been done away with inside the nation of Quebec. Thus, since it appears Quebec is indeed a separate nation, then the rest of Canada need not become bilingual just to serve only 6% of the French in all of the rest of Canada. If any of those 6% francophones choose to live within Canada and not in the Nation de Quebec, then fine, they're welcome. But as the infamous Louise Baudouin, when referring to the province of Quebec, said,
there has to be a common language in the country, and so it's French or English. Well, I think that when you're 82% of the population, the majority wants it to be French.
They must also respect the fact that, like French is the common language of the Nation de Quebec, English is the common language in the nation of Canada. On the other hand, once this question is asked and a clear definition is forthcoming from the province of Quebec, if they do consider themselves a province within Canada, then they must agree to respect the flag, the anthem, and everything else that goes with being a province in this country. We must then move to being sure that they do away with these unneeded embassies, which they have scattered around the world, which you and I are paying for, and they must no longer send their premier to summit meetings to meet with other world leaders as if the premier of Quebec were indeed a world leader themselves. If they say they are a nation of their own, on the other hand, inside of Canada, then they must no longer be treated like a province. However, if they do say they are a province within Canada, they should be brought in line with the idea that Canada is one flag, one national anthem, and one legal system. Oh, and also one prime minister. There is only one answer to this question, and it must be clear.